We're on to our last discussion item of the evening, which is the appointment of a provisional board trustee. My thinking on how to proceed was to see, we have 3 of our candidates here tonight who have been kind enough to make themselves available in the event that the board had further questions of them. So my thought was to see what the board's pleasure is, if they do want to ask any further questions of any of the candidates, and if we do, then we'll sequester the others. And if not, or if they do, and when we conclude the additional questioning period, then take public comment and then go into board discussion on whether or not we can reach some agreement on who to appoint. So that's my proposal: a question period, public comment, and a discussion period. Is that okay? Mr. Pat seems to be shaking his head as well. All right. So the question then is: do board members have additional questions that they would like to ask any of the board member, or sorry, any of the board candidates, or are you ready to proceed to public comment and discussion?
I suggest proceed to public comment.
Okay, so Mr. Merriam is ready to go.
I don't have any
Mr. Pats?
I'm okay to move to public comment.
Okay. All right. I think I'm in a similar situation and not sensing otherwise from the board. Then I think the candidates can stay and witness as part of the meeting and or as members of the public make public comments if you want. So do we have any public comment on this item regarding appointment of provisional board trustees? Ms. Miles?
Good afternoon, board again. Audrey Miles, Anna Yates, Elementary TK. As a previous board member, one of the things I said to our board was that I was hoping that whatever board member that you chose would be someone who would be about bringing our board together cohesively and working together to put children first. And because we know that lately we've had some contentiousness on the board, and we're hoping that as a teacher, that the person that you bring to the board not just has an agenda to spread their own agenda. It is about supporting children. It is about supporting teachers. Hopefully that person is someone in our community that is going to add a different layer to the board and provide a varied opinion, which is something I think that we need in order to have our board move forward. This is the year 2016. I'm hoping that means that we will work together as a team. I think the last time that I was here, I talked about when the head doesn't work, the body doesn't function. And so if our board is being contentious with each other and not working together and having their own agendas, that it filters down to your teachers and your staff, and things don't get done. And so I see that one of the things I see that we have a young person who is also a member of our community who went through our schools. I think it's wonderful that we have Brittany, who is a member of our community who went through Emory schools, is adds a different layer as a young person to represent the school board, to look at teachers, to look at students, and add maybe a different layer to the board that we need in order to move forward when moving to the ECCL. So I'm hoping that she's considered for the board position. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miles. Other public comment?
Good evening, Board. My name is Joshua Simon, a former school board member and a member of the Citizens Oversight Committee looking over the ECCL. I want to in part echo Ms. Miles' comments about this is, as you know, a very important decision. Every board, we went through, I think, 6 or 7 board changes in the 13 years that I was on the board. And each time we picked a new board member, the critical issue that we considered was in part the chemistry, because each board member brings a different set of skills. The one thing that all of our board members always had, and I believe this board does as well, is that the needs of the kids came first, and that at the end of the day, whatever differences we had, we would come to a decision, and then we would all stand together as a board behind that decision for the sake of the kids, the teachers, and for having a unified school district that would put the service of kids first. So it was not the disagreements between adults that would govern. And looking at, to what degree does the new person coming in add to that chemistry as the board? Every board has a chemistry. And I know that you're looking at this, but I think it's worth saying. I think, I'm thankful that we have so many applicants. When I was on the school board, we were lucky to have 1 or 2. So I congratulate you. I think it speaks a lot towards how far Emory has come, that there are so many applicants and that there's such a wide range of applicants. So I'm looking forward to your discussion. I won't presume to know what's best for your board, because you know your chemistry better than anyone else, and you have some good options. So thank you. I look forward to hearing the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Simon. Good to see you. Other public comment? Okay. Seeing no other public comment, then we will move to discussion of the appointment of a provisional board member. I guess one way to start is to ask if folks, having now had a week or almost a week, have thought about things further. If anyone wants to volunteer to start us off, reiterate your prior thinking, or indicate that you've thinking somewhat differently. Okay, well, seeing no immediate takers, I can start off. I have reached out and spoken and met with each of the candidates so that I could have some one-on-one time and get to know folks a little better. And I have to say I feel better about all of the candidates, having done that, actually. and you know, could see working with the different candidates in different ways, in productive ways with all the candidates. And I see real strengths that are out there in what each of our applicants have offered. And nobody has all of the same thing. But I think we do have some real thoughtful, interested individuals who really could help the district in different ways. That said, I have not. I feel better about all the candidates, but I have not changed my order. I guess I probably have changed my comfort level with other options, but my order remains the same, and I would continue to favor Brittany Collins Rogers as our next appointment as my top candidate, with Gowdy Sanchez as a second candidate, and then Mr. Carver and then Mr. Bukowski would be the order. I think that starting with Mr. Carver, I think I was very appreciative of his comments about working together as a board and how one you know, assumes the best intentions of the people that you're working with and trying to work together in a positive way that's productive. And I think he's probably the most similar to me of the candidates in that you know, he's a lawyer. He weighs things. He wants to see the evidence. He wants to be balanced, and so I you know, really connect with him on that level. Ms. Sanchez, I think, is I've seen her for years coming to school with her daughter and her husband, because they usually would come together. But I had never actually had the opportunity to have a conversation with her. And I think we did have some difficulty following her and understanding her in some of her presentation last week. And I do think that you know, is a function of her not being a native English speaker. But she, I think, is articulate and a very thoughtful person, and you know, has a really excellent background that we could benefit from. She has a master's in international marketing communications master's from Madrid, and is very much interested in the marketing and the technology and improving district communication, and has a lot of energy and outreach thoughts about how to improve the parent engagement, and whatever happens tonight, I don't want to lose that energy and that connection, and I think I think you know, she has a personal energy and charisma that that many of us, other than Joy, lack up here. That would be helpful addition to the district in our work and in our interface with the community. I do still, as I said, favor Brittany Collins Rogers for many of the reasons that Ms. Miles indicated. I mean, I think it we have a student who's gone through our system, who knows our system from the inside, who knows our teachers, and who is a recent graduate. And she wasn't just any graduate. She was the president of the ASB. She was a member of the City Schools Committee. And she has been a leader in as a student, and we tell our students, well, if be a leader, and we will listen to you and raise your voice. And then if they do that, and then they go off and they be a success and they get a college degree, and then they come back to town and say, I want to give back, and we say, well, you're not ready yet. I think that sends the wrong message. And I think the board does not have sufficient representation of the high school and what's going on at the high school and the students at the high school. And yeah, we have conversations and we go there and we get reports and things, but I think that Ms. Collins-Rogers could bring an immediacy that we don't currently have. And I think I feel connected to Annie Yates, and I feel I can bring that. Mr. Patz is, well, he doesn't have a child at Annie Yates. He is in that community and in regular conversations with parents and teachers there. I don't feel we have that as immediate a connection on the board with the high school. And I think that's an important gap that we need to fill. As I also said last time, I mean, we have a district that is 55% African American, and I think it is only an additional attractiveness to me to be appointing have a board member who's also African American, and not just because of the color of someone's skin, but because of the experience that they have lived growing up in this community as an African American and going through our schools. And I think that is an expertise and an experience that we could use. So I would continue to support the candidates in that order. Other thoughts? Oh, let me just say one more thing on Ms. Collins-Rogers. I think she did not have a very good interview last week. I think she was very nervous, and this was a completely new and more challenging, probably, interview public process than she was even expecting herself. As Mr. Pat said, her written application, the content was excellent, and I think we should not hold it against her for being young and inexperienced. I think we should give her the opportunity and support to be the leader that she can be. And I don't think you get elected president by your peers or being asked to be in city schools if you're not capable of working on a board and being a leader and being a public person. So I do think that was an issue, and I as part of her interview process, but I guess that is how I come down. And I talked to Ms. Collins-Rogers about that, and I think she acknowledged that that was a surprise for her. That's not how she's performed in public before, but there you have it. So I think in my own job, I can think of at least 2 people who came to interview, and I would not have called them back, and I would not have hired them. But because they didn't have a very good interview, and other people in the organization convinced me, no, I see something here. Let's give them a second try, and I'm really glad I did in both of those instances, because both of those people ended up working as close colleagues for 10 years or more. So, any event, I think I wouldn't judge the whole person by one interview. I think we need to look at the whole experience in the application as a whole.
I think Don and I are waiting for each other to go, and we'll keep quiet the whole night waiting for that. So I appreciate a lot of what you had to say there, because I don't disagree with it, and I don't think I did at the last meeting. I asked you to sort of dig a little deeper, and I'm glad that you have. The experience is exactly spot on. I do think a person's experience really shapes who they are, and is a voice that we desperately need on this board. But again, I look at the people who came up and spoke this evening, and I think a lot about what they've said, and I think about where we are in the process, and it's interesting to me when and where people choose to show up. Many a nights we sit out here staring at empty chairs, and I'm always curious. So if we're looking at that complete package, when I spoke with Brittany today, that was one of the things that I mentioned is, there's a continuance. It's not just at the end of high school and you go off to college, but there is sort of this being involved in the community of, we have committees, we have, planning meetings. We've had a lot of things going on, and, when I look at the candidates, it speaks well to Ken's experience, but it also speaks well to Mr. Carver's experience. And I think it'd be important to have somebody with a legal background on the board. I think there's no discounting that. So when I look at the whole picture, I agree with you. Youth and inexperience are not automatic disqualifiers. But I asked myself, what was the rubric, or what was the criteria? And maybe we set up the process inappropriately. Maybe we really needed to look beyond the interview process. But that was supposed to be our metric, our come in and interview. You apply, the applications screen you to an interview, and the interview is the way we go. But even looking at the totality, I missed the connection with the high school. I realized she graduated, but it's a few years ago, and we have a student representative, and I think she's moved beyond that and has a much richer experience in the professional world. To think of her as a link to the student world. I look at, the planning process, where we've been, what we've gone through, and I don't know how much of that was captured by, Ken, Ms. Sanchez, or Brittany. And I apologize if I'm using first versus last names. I am terrible at remembering names, and so it's just the way my brain is wired. And so, I look at those things, and I still think about, in total, and again, I live in a different world. If we hire somebody, they have a job almost for life at that point. And so if you don't clear that first bar, you're not in, because it is difficult to remove public employees. So I screen and I am only, in the merit system, only allowed to use the interview as my guide. And so my rubric is different than yours. But again, other than talking to people, talking to Brittany and to Ken and to Brian, I unfortunately did not have a chance to talk with since I didn't realize first name, Gowdy. I would have liked to have it, other than moving Ken to fourth place from third. My rankings have not changed. I still think Mr. Carver brings in that level of experience, that level of knowledge. He has kids in Anna Yates as we speak, you know, who are transitioning up in age. And that just, you know, is an overwhelming plus for a person. You know, and then I thought about it, one of our biggest jobs is to hire or to oversee hiring for the district. And at what level would we bring somebody in? You know, when we talked about the role of the superintendent versus the role of the board, we're the check of the superintendent. And while I think Brittany would make an excellent teacher, and I will reach out to you because I feel like we need more great teachers at the school, she's not ready to be the administrator, right, or the superintendent, whereas people with more experience are. And so where we fall on that scale, you know, we're at the very high end. And so, you know, experience does matter, both growing up, but also in your career. So again, my order, other than moving Ken to the bottom, has not changed upon a second viewing of the interviews.
I agree with so much of what each of you have already said, but in my own process over the last week with minimal sleep and a slight distraction, I went back and I read the applications. I tried to watch as much of the interviews as I could in between diaper changes. But listening to what each of you said and what some of the public comment was this evening, two things kind of strike me. And that if I had, when I joined the board at, like, I think it was like 28 or 29, if I had to sit down and do an interview like that, I would have failed miserably. It would not have been a good showing. And the first year I sat on the board, I sat in a lot of silence. I didn't speak up a lot. And I did a lot of crying. But, and I hope that over the last few years, I think I've brought something to the board. So I do think it's a little unfair to base it completely on that. And so that, you know, sticks out very clearly in my head. And then what Josh said about chemistry also spoke loudly to me. And based on past experiences, and with all of what I just said, I still think that Brittany would be who I would choose to join for various reasons that I don't need to repeat because they've been said. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, as I can repeat or say the same thing as my fellow board members. I did too take time and go back and review and just contemplate on this decision. And it's a very tough decision to support or give your vote to somebody that through various means, through written and oral presentations, comes to you and says they're interested. And that's a very, very good sign of our process that we deal with. And I commend every candidate that did attempt or did provide that experience. With that being said, I did have a change of heart on my process and my decision. I thought over the period of time that I had a chance to think that we do need basically, I want to say, maybe a new way of thinking, maybe a new opportunity. And with that in mind, my support would be towards to Ms. Collins Rogers in doing so to become a member of this board. I think she brings a different perspective, I know through the interview process, and plus the written application. In totality, although I think the written was so much better than the oral, but here again, it's a complete package when it comes to addressing and stating things that were asked of her. So I commend her and her efforts. With that being said, I think we need to strike a balance and to show that we have the opportunity to let a person of the community from a different viewpoint be a part of this board. I think it's very important that it does happen. We sit here and we can address concerns through staff, students, teachers, administrative portion, and the community in whole. I think we really need to have another voice from maybe something that we've never really considered. So I'm willing to give the opportunity to Ms. Collins Rogers to join the board.
So, I'm curious how you jumped her from third to first on your list, because I'd like to hear that process.
I had a chance to discuss some topics with her. She reached out, and I did have a chance to talk to her. She was composed. She answered, and she presented herself very well in that venue. So I felt comfortable with that discussion that I had with her.
Yeah, I had that same experience. I'm glad to hear that she was able to get a hold of you and have that conversation, because I very much had that same experience of a one-on-one, her composure and the setting really dramatically changing her responses. So I'm glad to hear that.
So, unless the board feels there's need for further conversation, it seems as if we've reached at least a point where majority of the board is in favor of one particular candidate, and that I don't think we need to take public comment at this point, but I'm willing to. If there's any member of the public who wants to. Okay, do we have a motion on the appointment of a provisional board member? And we should be clear, whoever gets appointed tonight is only appointed till November, and that individual wants to continue to serve on the board. He or she needs to run and be elected by the public. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Member Ash?
Yes.
Member Merriam?
Yes.
Member
w-
Pats?
Yes.
President Affelt?
Yes, and I think the motion that you moved on was to appoint Brittany Collins Rogers?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, I want to thank the board for a thoughtful conversation and a process, and I appreciate the fact that we were able to reach unanimity after some thinking, and I again want to thank the candidates for putting yourselves out there, which is not always an easy thing to do in a public process. I know all of the board members want to continue to tap into your energies to make our district stronger, because it takes more than 5 people up here to do that. So thank you. All right. At this point, then we move to board reports and announcements. Are there any board reports or announcements?
I will not be. President Affel, I will not be in attendance next week, next board meeting, which is the 13th or
Or 14th?
February
It's February 10th.
February 10th. I'm sorry. I will not be in attendance.
Okay. Thank you for letting us know. Any other board reports or announcements? Okay. Calendar review, please.
Yes, our next regular meeting of the Board of Trustees is February the 10th. I want to let everyone know that the dismissal hearing for February 1st and 2nd for the board will not be occurring. That's been rescheduled, and I'll give the board some more information in closed session about that. Just make sure you mark your calendars that you do not need to be available on February 1st or 2nd.
Okay.
And that's all I have. School is closed the week of February 15th.
Member
Sorry,
Pratt, seemed
I-
like you have something.
I feel like we didn't take a moment to say congratulations to Ms. Collins Rogers.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Sort of feel like
Joshua.
we should have taken a moment there. So,
And we will swear you in at the next board meeting, which is February 10th. Okay, thank you. But you are officially appointed, and this meeting is adjourned. The closed session.